Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and today we are going to continue with whatever we left last time. And last time I just left with the keyframes. So what keyframe is going to do is it's just going to record a snapshot of what happened at that particular moment. And I have added like a keyframe every 20 seconds, so it's going to record every 20 seconds. So and ticks, what ticks I'm gonna what is this ticks doing here is that um I just needed something to trigger this Y motion, like to add up the coordinates. So ticks is helping me in that. I'm just making it a little slow. Ticks helps me to make things slow or faster. If I want the bird to fall down very slowly, like here it's like quite fast. So if I want to make the bird fall more slowly, I can do a modulus of 3 or a modulus of 4, and then I can make it more slower. So that's what this is helping me in. And Y motion is just adding whatever the bird's coordinate is. Like, let me show you. Whatever the bird's coordinate is, I'm just adding a Y motion to that. So for example, this is the current bird's coordinate, and when I do +2, it's going to go down a little, +2 again, go down a little, and so on. So that's what this Y motion is doing. It's just adding or decreasing. Next, I have this x equal to x minus 2. Now what this is doing is that it's just helping the cloud traverse through the screen. Now x is just getting decreased every frame, every keyframe. So what happens? The cloud just moves throughout in each keyframe, and only x coordinate is changed, y coordinate remains constant at that particular position, because yeah, you don't see a cloud moving up and down like that, right? So that's what this is doing. And if x is less than 0 minus cloud dot get width, so what that is doing is that, for example, there's a cloud here and it has moved through the screen already, and it's somewhere there. So what happens, the coordinates of the cloud will be like minus something, because this is like positive x, so this side will be like negative x. So that's what I'm doing here. If it's like a negative, then just set new coordinates for another cloud. So I'm just using one cloud and I'm just looping it throughout the whole screen each and every time once it has traversed through the screen. So now here what this is doing is that I'm just taking a new x coordinate. I'm adding the width of the screen to the cloud, and I'm adding its own width, right? So that it doesn't appear like partial here. If I don't add this cloud width, it's gonna look like half here. So we don't want that. We want it to look like gradually coming out and going off the screen. So that's what this is for. Next is the cloud v dot set x, and I'm just setting the coordinates of the x of the cloud using this x coordinate, whatever I have found out here. And same with the y. Now y, what happens is that I'm adding 10 here. Now 10, it's because I don't want the cloud to look like halfway. So adding 10 to it ensures that, yeah, it's gonna appear maximum here, so it doesn't go off the screen. And 100 basically because I want the cloud to appear at the max in this region. I don't want it to go down or something, so I've made it a random number every time, but it should be inside 100, so that when I add it to the y coordinate, it just stays in this region, it doesn't go down. Yeah, and that random because every time the cloud enters the screen, it will be in a random position. It will be sometimes a little up, sometimes a little down. So that's what this random is helping me in. Now I've set the y coordinate of cloud. Now next, what I'm doing here is that I'm taking the coordinates of the bird and I'm setting um, like a motion to it, right? So whatever y motion I've recorded in here, right, I have added it here so that until the key is released, I'm gonna keep on adding the y motion to the bird, whether it's negative or positive. Here we have a positive y motion because I've added like +2 to it, so it will be moving downwards. So by default, if the key is not released, or like if the up key is not pressed, it's gonna go down, and because it's gonna keep on adding +2 to it, and that is gonna get added to this bird. Next is I'm just setting the coordinates of the bird, of the y coordinate, and after that I'm making an event where I have created an event on key release. So when I release the up key, what is going to happen is that I'm going to check whether the key pressed is up or not. Whether if it's not up, then it's just going to leave. If it's up, then it's going to go to the jump function. Now let's go to the jump function and check what are its functions. So what this function is doing is that it's checking if the game is over or not. If the game is over, then what it's gonna do is that it's just gonna come out of the function and it's just gonna go back. It's not gonna do anything. But if the game is not over, then it's gonna set whatever the y motion is. Like for example, if the y motion is already set to 4, so like it's greater than 0, right? So it will be set to 0. Y motion will be set to 0. So why do we need to set the y motion to 0? So that the bird doesn't move down anymore. It at least stays in its position. And next time when I click up again, what happens is that the y motion is already 0, right? Now I'm just gonna deduct 10 from it. So what happens is that whatever the current coordinate of the bird is, I'm just gonna deduct -10, so it will go up. -10 again, go up. -10 again, go up. If it's not clicked, I mean, if it's not pressed, means the up key, so it will go down again. So that's what this is doing. And now next, I have to check for collision. Yeah, collision, you can check in any part of the program, but wherever I have kept, I think that would be better. Now this collision program, what this is going to do is that it's going to check whether each and every rectangle or the columns that I've made, whether any of them are hitting the bird. Like if any of them is like hitting the bird, then I'm gonna put some conditions, and I'm gonna first of all set the game to be over. So if there is a point where the bird and the column intersects, so what happens is that I'm going to declare it to be true, the game over to be true. And here what I'm going to do is that I'm going to check whether the coordinates of the bird is less than the coordinates of the y-axis. So if you can see, when I hit the floor and goes back just behind the column, and it just goes back. So you have to set that condition, or else it's gonna look a little bad. It will just go down, and it will never come up. The bird will just like fall down. So you don't want that. You want it to just be on top and just slide by, right? So that is what we have to do. Next is, that's the first condition, right? Like you can't let the bird fall down off the ground. You have to keep the bird on top of the ground. That is one condition. And second condition is that when it hits the pillar, it's not gonna be stuck in between the column or something, because it gets stuck. Like if you make the game, you'll understand that when I just hit it, and if I don't set few conditions, it's gonna just be stuck in between the pillars, and that doesn't look good. So that's why I need few of these conditions here to make sure that it doesn't get stuck in between the pillar, it doesn't get uh, it doesn't fall down all the way, like it should be on top of the ground. And yeah, if it hits on the roof, then it's not gonna be like stuck there and just go back. So we have to make sure of all that. So that's what this is doing. And if you don't do it by yourself, I think you won't understand. So until you do it by yourself, you'll understand what I've written here exactly, right? So yeah, and this is basically getting the center, right? And if I have to keep it like off the ground, and on top of that I have to create the bird y center to be greater than 0. So the center of the y should be greater than 0. Then I declare it to be game true. So actually what this is doing is that I'm keeping the bird within this parameter and within the up parameter. The bird shouldn't keep on like jumping and like flying off the roof. Like it shouldn't be in that way, and the bird shouldn't fall down all the way. Like when I press when I don't press the up key, it should just limit itself to here, and when it touches here, then game over is true. If it touches there, then game over is true. So I have limited the bird within these boundaries, and it shouldn't exceed that. Next, if game over. So I have to set the conditions, right? Like if the game is over, what I'm gonna do after that. So as you can see, if I move it, then what happens, it gets stuck and it shows a label that the game is over, and it shows a score, and there's a restart button. So that's what this is doing. It's keeping the bird at the center of the screen and stuff like that. And after that we are putting a label, and then we are setting the font and all that, so those are not required. So that's basically it. When I click, when I when I yeah, when the game is over, then this is what that's basically coming out. So later part, like if game is over, then I'm gonna later add the button as well. So let's go down and check that. Now I'm gonna check here as well. When I click the game over, what happens is that I'm gonna check the condition here. If it does not contain this L, the label, the new label, right? If it does not contain this, then I'm gonna add this new label along with the button. So if you can see, I'm gonna add this new label along with the button. And after that, when the button is clicked, then I'm gonna start this function, start one. Right, when I click this button, then I'm gonna go to this function, start one. Now if we go to the start one function, we will realize what is there. So basically what this start function is gonna do is gonna just refresh everything and put up these new labels and the bird position and new score and everything. So that's what this start one function is doing, right? So as you can see, I've set the centers here, and I've made the game over to be false, and I've set the new Y motion, new score, and I have set these few parameters. I have removed all the columns, and I have removed the button and all that, right? And I've cleared the columns to make sure that there are no stagnant columns, and I have put a while loop in order to keep on adding like 20 columns. You can add more columns, but basically what happens is that like the memory becomes too full and it gets slow. So I made it at the max 20 columns. I've added 20 columns. Then after that, I'm going to set a new label. That is this label. I'm going to put its properties, and like for example, I've set the text to be this. It's just almost similar with the first starting screen that we saw. So I'm setting all of that here. And I have paused the timeline. That's the basic thing. I have to pause the timeline because or else it will keep on adding it. I don't want that, right? I want it to stop, like to pause, to stop everything, whatever it's doing. So that's what this timeline pause does. And next I'm going to add the children, which is L2, which is this label. And I'm gonna look at this, right? So when there is a key release, that is the up key, what happens, I'm gonna do the same thing again here. I'm gonna check if the code is up, and I'm gonna play the timeline, and I'm gonna remove like the label, the first label that we are seeing right now. I'm gonna remove this, and I'm gonna add new columns. Now I have cleared all the columns, so I have to add new columns, but the bird and the cloud, I didn't clear them, so they are in their positions. I've just set new position of the bird. The cloud is just the same position as I left the last time. So yeah, that's it. That's what the start one does. It's almost similar to the first keyframe that we have seen. Now I have set like two keyframes. One is this keyframe and the other keyframe is this. So in the second keyframe, what I've done is that I'm keeping this keyframe only for the columns. So in this columns, what happens is that I'm checking the column size, and I'm gonna iterate through it until it reaches the maximum column size, right? Until yeah, it reaches there. So next what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna get a column, and I'm gonna get its get I. So I'm gonna get a particular column of this index, right? And I'm gonna fill the column with this LD. It's the color gradient that I kept for the columns, if you can see, right? I'm gonna fill the columns with these color gradients, and after that, let me just pause that. And after that, I have set in some effect like the shadow. This is for the shadow, and I'm gonna set its coordinates, right? So obviously one column I'm taking it, and I'm setting its coordinate to be like -5, so it's like somewhere there outside the screen, right? So what happens is that uh, when I do that, it's already there, like these columns are already there outside the screen, and when I play the timeline, it's gonna gradually enter in the screen. So I'm just setting them up here, and if column dot get y is equal to 0, so if the column dot get y equal to 0, which is the top column, so what happens, and the bird dot get center x plus bird dot get radius x is greater than the column dot get x plus column dot get width divided by 2 -5 plus and bird dot get center plus bird dot get radius is less than column get x plus column dot get width divided by 2 plus 5. So if this what this is doing is that it's basically checking whether the bird has passed through like in between the columns, and has successfully passed without touching it, right? If it has successfully passed one column, then what I'm gonna do is that I'm gonna increase the score and I'm gonna put a new score label. Like I'm gonna set the text. So if I pass one score, then this 0 will be replaced by 1, right? So that's what this is doing. And after that, we are checking the score label as well, and we have set it to the color dark blue. So every time it's set to color dark blue, right? That's what they are doing. And next, what we are gonna check is that this what this is doing is that again it's gonna iterate through the columns, and it's gonna remove one by one whatever it's not necessary. It's gonna remove all that. That's what this column is doing. All right, what the like if there are like too many columns in the memory, it's really gonna make it slow. So this is what is helping them to remove the columns one by one, and to release the space. So if you can see, there's this rectangle. I'm getting one column here, and after that I'm gonna check whether whatever the width and the x coordinate of the column is less than 0 or not. If it's like out of the screen, that's what I'm basically doing here. If it's like out of the screen, then I'm gonna remove that Barclay column, right? So here I'm adding these two keyframes in this timeline, and I'm adding the children's to the root, because root is a group, right? And that group, again, I'm adding it to the scene, and I'm setting the background as light blue, if you can see. And that's it. I'm just starting this function again, and after that I'm adding this again. The scene again has to be added to the primary stage. So this is what that is doing. So that's how all this is created. I hope you guys understood, and thank you for your patience, and thank you.